It's also been kind of a 1-2 punch here. We felt like people figured out how to deal with tariffs. Then this COVID-19 hit.
F&B furniture stores weren't deemed in most cases essential across the country and presented challenges in and of itself for a lot of these retailers.
They weren't deemed essential, but some of these big box stores that were, they were still selling furniture. There was a little bit of a disconnect on, I think, essential versus non-essential. And the stores are reopening now. The whole industry is figuring out, how do we do business in this environment?
The challenges that furniture retailers have faced over these past few weeks is really been interesting to follow, because it's as we'll get into today, multiple tiers to kind of the challenges they've faced as COVID hit and spread throughout the country and impacted businesses from coast to coast here. But the challenges that they faced were, you had them being asked to shut down because they were deemed non-essential, and meanwhile there were home improvement stores left open, big box stores left open that had furniture and were still able to sell it, and it kind of created an unfair situation for them. And that's exactly what a little bit of what Powell Slaughter, the senior editor at Furniture Today, spoke about. As we had our discussion continuing this trade partner series here on the Independent Thinking podcast, but so much more too. It's having to deal with these competitive disadvantages really, for them, but also the 1-2 punch, very similar to the appliance space, the 1-2 punch of tariffs on products and what that did prior to COVID. The inability to kind of plan for something like this hitting, and then looking ahead to how to operate as a retailer in this space in a world with this global pandemic going on. And then we look ahead too. What's this situation mean for the manufacturers as well? That typically have product and the markets that they typically bring those products to and introduce them at being canceled, and going virtual, that sort of thing. What does that look like for manufacturers and the retailers trying to get their hands on product? So really a lot to dive into with Powell. You had a great conversation, one that took a lot of different turns, but certainly learned a lot throughout the course of the conversation as well. So excited to share that with you as always. So we're just going to go ahead and dive into our conversation on the Independent Thinking podcast with Powell Slaughter of Furniture Today. All right, we're back on the Independent Thinking podcast and continuing our run through little series here with our trade media partners, and excited today to have on Powell Slaughter, senior editor at Furniture Today. Powell, appreciate you, under these new working circumstances, taking some time out of your schedule and hopping into your home office and chatting with us for the podcast.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Rob.
Yeah, right. You bet. Yeah. So tell us a little about, I think everyone in our space is pretty familiar with Furniture Today and what you guys do and how important you are to the space. But start by telling us just a little bit about yourself and your background, and then a little bit about Furniture Today as well.
Cool. Well, Furniture Today, of course, a weekly trade publication where we like to think we're the leader in the residential home furnishing space for trade journalism. I came to Furniture Today 25 years ago. Started off covering some kind of ancillary wood categories and retail technology, and moved on to become case goods editor there, where I was responsible for all wood furniture. Was there for 10 years, went to home furnishings business for the startup there, where I was covering retail operations and best practices, and came back to Furniture Today in 2015. I had a couple of furniture categories, but my main focus there was to increase our coverage of the logistics category, which we really stepped up in that a lot, that and retail finance. A couple of years ago, though, we had an opening to cover the upholstery beat, which, as we know, is fairly significant in the industry.
Yeah, a little bit.
They switched me over to that, and I've been covering upholstery since April, Market 2018.
That's pretty cool.
but I like to think that, with the experience covering retail, logistics, I try to bring some of those supply chain issues into my coverage. Yeah.
Gotcha. Now, funny story that we discovered, in our talk before hopping on the podcast, was that our paths nearly crossed at one
Yes.
point in time. Something interesting. So, NAPCO Media in Philadelphia has a wide variety of, trades and industries that get covered, but we just missed each other being coworkers.
Well, we finally connected. Yeah.
Look at that. What do you know?
Yeah.
No, it's pretty cool. But obviously a lot of time spent covering this space, and I have to imagine, it's been, these recent weeks have been some of the most interesting time in that, time that you've covered this industry.
Yes, indeed. The word unprecedented gets tossed around a lot, but in this case, it's certainly true.
Right.
This is, I went through, during my career, I was involved in coverage of the anti-dumping petition against wood bedroom, the crash of 2008, 2009, and the recovery out of that. And this is just, through all those times, through the economic issues we had 10 years ago, you always had a High Point market. You always had a Las Vegas market. Las Vegas is still scheduled, but we had to cancel spring market, and I was sitting there in April going, "Gee, what am I doing here?" But it's forced changes on everybody. Not for retailers, for manufacturers, for the way we do our jobs, and everybody's adjusted. And I've just never seen anything like this in my lifetime. Period. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's crazy. I mean, even we've had our own changes at Nationwide, having to push prime time and rethink things a little bit. So knowing kind of what this space and what you're used to, a space that everyone travels a lot, even though it's retail, I think there's a lot more travel than people realize for these small businesses, and not having any of that kind of completely changes the pace and your sort of your regular cadence of, what you expect your calendar to look like every year, even quarter to quarter. But, it's just been weird. It's been a weird first half of the year.
Yeah. Well, it's also been kind of a 1-2 punch here. For a couple of years, we were dealing with the tariff issue, and there was a big disruption in supply chain as manufacturers moved out of China into places like Vietnam, Cambodia, India, and kind of a rejuvenation in Malaysia and Indonesia. But a lot, especially for like upholstery, the industry there had a long experience in wood, but getting ramped up for, what was essentially a new category for a lot of people, created some issues flowing goods. We felt like, okay, we got people figured out how to deal with tariffs. Then this COVID-19 hit, which basically they threw a big wrench in. Everybody knows Chinese New Year is throughout, celebrated in China, and Tet in Vietnam. But, you had all these factories that remained closed after that. So, there was an issue with supply chain already there, and this just exacerbated that. People are starting to get caught up now, but the deal is there's so many. We've had a really good May at retail. I mean, this kind of activity in the second quarter is, again, unprecedented.
Yeah, right.
And so a lot of stores have been closed. Maybe some of them were doing business online and selling off their inventory there, but there was an immediate need for product. And for companies that were flowing containers, from Asia, that became an issue. We've seen a lot more interest in quick ship, U.S. warehousing, things like that. Because right now, we talked about High Point Market being canceled. What I'm hearing right now is that, we always want to see new products, but what we really need to do right now is focus on business. It's booming right now. We need product now. What can we get now? So,
right. Well, the interesting thing is that you talk to the other categories as well. I know the problem seems very similar, with what appliances are facing right now as far
Mhm.
as supply chain, not being able to get product here from manufacturers whose plants were
Mhm.
shut down for a time, or reduced staff and couldn't produce, because those guys when I say those guys, I mean the appliance side had the benefit of being essential businesses in most cases,
Yeah.
in this country. So they were able to stay open somewhat, but they still face their own supply chain issues. Whereas, F&B furniture stores, not always, I'm sure you could kind of speak to this too, weren't deemed in most cases essential across the country, and presented challenges in and of itself for a lot of these retailers.
I think one of the problems there is that they weren't deemed essential, but some of these big box stores that were,
Right.
they were still selling furniture. I mean, furniture retailers were saying, "Hey, why don't you make these guys rope off this section of that section of the store?" And from what I can tell, that wasn't happening. So there was a little bit of a disconnect on, I think essential versus non-essential.
Right.
And it was, an unfair, competitive situation there. But,
Right.
stores are reopening now, albeit in, in way, they're having to do things differently. The whole industry is figuring out, how do we do business in this environment, whether that's on the supply or the retail side.
And you kind of mentioned it too. I think a lot of them lead. We could speak from our membership and what they were doing from a digital standpoint, but what else were you seeing? Because obviously there was things like appointment retailing that became an option and is an option still in
Mhm.
most cases. Chat things,
Yeah.
digital services like that. But what other sort of strategies or tactics are you seeing
Yeah.
retailers take to
But
kind
by
of?
the way, you mentioned that you mentioned the chat. I
Yeah.
know that when I go to a retailer website, the minute I hit that thing, somebody's on there. And,
It's a big deal.
I hadn't seen that to that extent. And this wasn't just at these big companies. This was, at some of the, smaller, maybe independents, some of the regional players. But they had somebody on the line. One thing that one thing I think a lot of people, if they weren't already, they've had some time to get smart with online sales. They're having to kind of figure out how to do that. I think that's going to be important moving forward for the what we call the traditional brick and mortar retailers. That aspect. Also, something that's really it shows a lot of potential is the buy online, pick up at the store model. You buy it online, you don't even have to go into the store. You just go pick it up. I
Right.
think that's gonna. I think some of those types of habits are, I think consumers are, could well use those types of things moving forward. And the by appointment, I think that's going to remain in place, particularly for consumers who have real health issues, who might be in a high risk area. If you offer them the ability to come in and be socially distanced, I think even if stores kind of reopen, more fully, I think some people are still going to want appointments. So
And the interesting thing, I heard this, talking. It may have been on either on a previous episode or just, in talking with others in the NMG team here about what we've seen from appointment retailing is that, when someone makes an appointment, it's not like they're just coming in to browse at that point. They're
yeah.
already coming in with a mindset that they want to buy.
Mhm.
So I mean, you may be having less foot traffic per se, but the foot traffic that's
Mhm.
coming in is almost, they're there with, checkbooks open, wallets ready to spend,
Mhm.
and close rates, those go up a little bit. They
Well,
look a
yeah,
little bit better,
and a lot
but
of them excuse me, a lot of them know exactly what they want when they come in the door.
exactly. Yep.
So,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt.
No,
Yeah.
you're good. It's interesting to see that, it's less traffic, but the traffic that's coming in is almost more,
It's
they're
more
there with a
meaningful.
purpose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's meaningful traffic. Um, but it all we talked about different ways of doing business. It's not just at the store. It's like at the market. How are
Right.
I
Right.
think the appointment only is going to be par for the course for a little while. I think until we get a vaccine, we're going to see a lot of social distancing, virtual shows, one-on-one shows. Here in High Point, we had 150 exhibitors open up in mid-June to, it was kind of a critical mass that
Right.
we were able to get some of the big guys in and some of the drive-in and, carry those, actually get to see new product and inline product. So it's, we have markets on schedule now. How that's going to play out, we'll see. It's just no telling right now.
Now, I know, new products in furniture, you mentioned those markets. Obviously, that's a big chance and usually a big platform for these manufacturers to show off what's new and coming.
Uh-huh.
Does the lack of physical in-person events mixed with the supply chain issues and what you've seen there, does that kind of put on pause any new product launches, or do you what are you hearing from manufacturers as far as their ability to introduce new concepts and things like that in the furniture space because of this?
Well, I think a lot of people, a lot of people just basically took their April intros and said, we're going to bring them out in October. Others, took it on the road, when they could, to retailers that were willing to be open to appointments. You had people flying in retailers to their showrooms to show them new goods. I don't think you're going to see, long term, I don't think you're going to see a big slowdown in the introduction of new products because, people are, we hear about, consumers who've been, sitting around looking at the same thing in their homes and going out and buying furniture. Retailers always want to freshen their floors because, if you come into a store or go onto the website or whatever and keep seeing the same thing over and over, you tend not to say, okay, well, they're still got what I saw 2 months ago. So I think that the flow of the product's going to be different. Maybe where they're sourcing, that's going to change, but I think you'll still see a lot of new goods coming out.
And exactly what you mentioned is something that I know we've been hearing a lot about, and that's this time at home. Yeah, stores were closed. Traffic and actual in-store sales performance may have been lagging, but all this time that consumers have been sitting at home, they've been sitting on their couches. They've been eating at the same dinner tables that 3 times a day now rather than once a day.
Yeah.
All that pent up demand. I mean, are you seeing anything yet as far as retailers and brands sort of capitalizing on that, or is it?
Yeah. Well, my colleague Tom Russell, who covers wood furniture, he's seen a big spike in dining room sales, which kind of were lagging behind a lot of other categories. And that speaks to the point you just made. They're sitting down there three times a day. One of the other areas we're seeing a lot of action in is motion upholstery, sectionals, excuse me, seating for the family room. A lot of these, some furniture is a deferrable purchase, excuse me. And, unless you got a mattress that's breaking your back, you can pretty much get by without purchasing furniture for a while. But this is, if you're on that sofa so much more than you usually are, it's not
notice those springs poking into you.
Style, comfort, style question. It's comfort. Yeah.
You notice those springs poking into you. When you're sitting there Netflixing for 8 hours a day.
Yeah, and home office, another
right.
area that's showing a lot of potential here now because, who's to say how this working at home wave is gonna happen? I mean, I wouldn't want to be in the commercial real estate business right now because I think some companies are going to find out, hey, maybe we just need a skeleton crew in here and have people come in and maybe alternate days in the office, maybe, come in one day a week in the office. I think you might see, this is not my day job, but you might see shrinking in demand for commercial real estate. Anyway.
Yeah. Interesting. And I mean, to your point, we've done some taking the time at home, from my family's perspective to reshuffle rooms and figure stuff out, get better, make more efficient use of the space we have, and it's resulted in some furniture purchases. So just one example of kind of the pent up demand, and the other side too. We've been hearing a lot about consumers. That with the reduced travel into the office, saving on gas, saving on, toll expenses, things like that. So
going out to dinner.
Yeah, no, less going out. So it's the savings have gone up, which means that not only is there pent up demand to purchase new furniture and products, but also there's a buildup of those personal coffers are a little more full than maybe they typically are. So there's more cash at hand to spend. So.
Well, yeah, we've been talking about that some in our pages, and we'll continue to do so on it. It's there's some good things going on for furniture out there right now. I think what everybody's wondering is, okay, how long does it last?
Right.
We're seeing, maybe we'll have another strong, holiday. Second quarter usually isn't that active. But I think that's what everybody's kind of waiting, but kind of getting ready for good business, I believe.
For sure. Kind of changing pace a little bit.
Sure.
Any cool story? Obviously you guys do a lot of coverage. You got a lot of stories that you're pumping out every day. Kind of lends itself to some cool stories that pop up. Any unique sort of anything that caught you off guard or made you smile in your coverage during this otherwise rough time?
I think overall, I've been really, kind of proud of the industry on some of the things they've done. I cover upholstery. We had dozens of upholstery manufacturers who, on a dime, converted their operations to produce PPE.
Right.
Or I don't think I said that right. Personal protective wear.
Yeah. Yep.
But they jumped right in. It kind of. And they ramped up really quick. I had a couple of people, the way they handled one of the issues that some of these manufacturers are having, particularly some of the larger ones, is that when people went out on unemployment, some of them were choosing to stay on unemployment versus come back to the plant. Omnia Leather in California, I'm sure there's some others, but they paid their employees throughout the shutdown, throughout the furlough.
Right.
And so they got basically everybody back. They were able to, kind of hit the ground running. We at retail, everybody knows Jim McIngvale at Gallery Furniture in Houston. The way he stepped up in previous crises. Well, he did it again. He was working with some local nonprofits. He set up the Gallery Furniture Resource Center, which brought in people for job training, food banks. Let's see, what else did they do there?
They did a whole lot. I mean, I
remember mental health services.
Yeah.
High school, vocational schooling. I mean, what a great guy. I mean, you think. He does it because that's the way he is. But the people in Houston, they aren't going to forget that.
Right.
Anyway. Also, I got to give a hats off to you guys. I was looking at your, what is it? The
Back to Business Hub.
the shop safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's some, getting CDC training. To tell people how they can, make their consumers feel safe. That's adding some value there as a marketing group. So hats off to that. But yeah, there are a lot of, there's a lot of good things out there. I mean, I've been around the industry for a long time, and it's got some great people and some people who really care. That's shown.
For sure. And I mean, it's the cool thing about the small business side of things is that, it is so family oriented and individual oriented that you really, as opposed to going into these big box stores where it's sort of corporate and very ho-hum in the matter of the way they go about things. The independent channel really brings out that personal touch. And, we're always talking about how that's something to lean into and use to your advantage as a business, but it really shines in times of need, I think. And, always, Gallery Furniture being a nationwide member is just an awesome example of that. And we see that in all sorts of pockets of the country. So, it's cool. It's cool to see.
Yeah, and also in the different environment that we have these days in stores, I think it really helps if you're, some of these dealers, they actually know the people who are coming in.
Yep.
It's a lot easier to say, okay, this, you got to wear a mask. Come
right.
on,
Right.
You gotta keep your, when you have that personal relationship. We've been hearing about some uncomfortable situations out there, and I think they're in a good position to deal with that. So anyway,
for sure. Well, I want to bring it back to your sort of not the one non-COVID question. Your expertise on the space and things you see coming as we look ahead to the second half. And the challenges aside, I know we already talked on what they're going to be the second half, but in terms of the product itself, what types of trends are you looking for, and that you think will sort of be prevalent and that these retailers need to keep their eye on as we move into the second half of the year?
I think you're seeing a pretty big emphasis across the board. Well, not with everybody, but with some pretty big players on figuring out how to do a better job of developing goods that work well in the online channel. I was just talking with some motion manufacturers about this opportunity because online is only growing, and this is only throwing gas on that fire.
Yeah.
And people are getting more comfortable with purchasing large items, but like with motion furniture, that's a big piece of furniture, has a big sectional, lots of metal, lots of mechanisms. Some of these guys are taking a more modular approach to the product, getting a huge array of configurations out of a pretty small number of SKUs. I think RTA furniture, you're going to see a lot of real strong development in that, and kind of a step up in the style. There's some people who are doing it really well right now, but I think you've got more. I think you had Bernhardt, developing a channel specifically for the e-commerce sales. And that was even before COVID, but I think you're going to see more of that. Upholstery sectionals are just really big now. I don't know what your members are hearing, but the retailers I've talked with and the manufacturers, who can, who have the numbers in front of them, that I think anything that brings flexibility in how you configure your room, that's going to be good. Because like a sectional, you can do something for a fairly small apartment on up to a huge open floor plan area. So that I think those are some things going on right now.
Gotcha.
Also, there's we hear about Made in America a lot. I think there's some going to be more interest there purely from a logistical standpoint and proximity to market. I think a lot of, especially in with things so uncertain, retailers don't want to invest in too much inventory. So, if they can get a custom piece or just smaller amounts of inline goods flowed more slowly, that's going to help. Importers who are doing U.S. warehousing programs, you're seeing a lot of big high cube warehouse operations going up for importers, so they can kind of feed that immediate demand. So there'll always be the big guys flowing containers, but
right,
there's going to be especially when they want to kind of retailers, they don't have a lot of cash right now.
Yeah.
So going into this, May was pretty good, but
right,
they're still getting caught up on their payables.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean,
I don't know if that's some help or not. Yeah. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
No, but it seems like whether you want to talk about it or not, the COVID thing is going to be here for a while to to kind of weed through and work our way through as an industry. And it's nice to have those glimpses of what's to come and thinking
Yeah.
about what's ahead. But it's there in the back of our minds until we can get through this to the other side. And
Yeah.
lots to look forward to though. And for all those new product things, obviously Furniture Today is somewhere that members can turn, people in this industry can turn, and you guys got a lot of great stuff, and look forward to continuing to follow the coverage. So,
Well, thanks a
Pal,
lot.
I appreciate having you on. Appreciate you taking the time, and this was fun. Hopefully we can do it again soon, maybe in person here before we know it.
Yeah. Might be 6 feet apart.
Yeah, right. I'll get one of those. Oh, the elbow shake, and I'll get one of those extended microphones so we can have it work
Okay, man.
No, but
Thanks,
this was awesome. I appreciate you taking the time.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Awesome, and a huge thanks again to Powell for taking time out of his day and logging on and getting it all set up for the podcast and having a great conversation, sharing some awesome insights about the things they're following and what they're looking out for as the second half of this year gets underway here, and we're diving right into it. So look forward to catching up with him again and hearing what he's finding in this furniture space, and we'll see. It's been an interesting, like he said, it's been an interesting go of it, and but it's been fun to see retailers and manufacturers alike adjust their business strategies and make it so they're able to successfully operate during this time. And more kudos to all you listeners out there, the retailers who are doing their thing and finding ways adjusting business strategies on the fly. So appreciate you taking the time as always to listen to the Independent Thinking Podcast, and we will catch you next time.